It's pretty sad there. It keeps
Okay. Okay, I'm going to start us off today with a quick scenario. Now, obviously, this is not something that you need to write down. Biggest thing to write down just be some terms, things like that. But I want to start us off with a scenario, and I want you to think about this. In this scenario, you have only got two choices, so it's pretty easy for you. You've got I don't know what happened. Some apocalyptic event has taken place, and now you have two countries, and that is all that is left in this world. You have to live in one or the other. There is no middle ground here. You have to pick one or the other. So which one would you live? Which one would you live in? That's the scenario here. So let me show you option number one. Behind door number one is a country that is not showing up on the slide. Yeah, there you go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to read through this, kind of read it with me. This is option number one. It is called free land. And in this country, the people are free to do whatever they want. No, Mr. Klein, surely not whatever. Yes, whatever they want. Children and adults may decide for themselves if they want to go to school, work, sleep all day, play games, watch movies, be a girl, etc. There are no laws of any kind in free land. How many of you have already booked passage to free land? Raise your hand. Well, hold on, Cody. It does sound a bit scary. It sounds like The Purge 4 or something like that, right? But Cody, hey, Cody, we don't know what option 2 is, right?
It's just as bad as that.
Well, okay. Here's what's behind door number 2. It is called leader land. In this country, there are all sorts of laws, which have all been made by one man. The people of this country are told by and his assistants where to live, how to dress, what job to hold, what newspapers to read, who to vote for at election time. The people lead safe and orderly lives as long as they follow. All right. You gotta go one way or the other. Let's do a democratic choice here. And I want no fence sitters. There's nothing in the middle of the white space. You don't want to. Gotta go to one of them. Okay. So, how many of you, with both options in front of you, are making the choice to live in free land? Raise your hand. Oh, this is terrible. Why would anybody live there? Here go the hands. How many of you would live in leader land? All right. Now, this is a very ridiculous scenario that is obvious. However, the reason why I start off with this scenario is because the idea of having to make a choice, the idea of having to create a country, to create a government from scratch, is really not all that different than what we had to deal with here in the United States once the revolution had taken place, and certainly once it was over. And what we see up here are two choices that I think were absolutely in front of the founders of this country as we created a new American government. How do we achieve a balance between freedom and order? The idea being that too much freedom, that's scary. Too much order, that's scary too. How do we achieve a balance between the two? And so as we go through our discussion, I kind of want this to be the overall question. If we can't achieve a perfect balance between the two, if one is always going to be existing more than the other, what should it be And what did the creators of this country decide it would be? Does this government feature more freedom, or is it balanced a bit more in the direction of order? So think about that as we go. Today we're going to talk about, I sort of titled this pre-constitutional chaos. I think that word is going to serve quite well. The United States Constitution, which we're going to spend a lot of time with, especially starting tomorrow, is still the document that gives us the structure of our government today. Now, it is one of two founding documents that we uphold and that we tend to pat ourselves on the back for, the other, of course, being the Declaration of Independence. We aren't going to spend time on the Declaration, and the reason for that is the Declaration is essentially a breakup letter, a breakup note with King George. And it is beautifully written, and it is a bold statement to be sure, but other than it stepping up finally and saying, we are free, it doesn't really do anything beyond that in terms of setting up our government. It is the first word in the sentence. It is the first big statement. But beyond that revolution, its value begins to wane. This document, the Constitution, is our law, is how our country and our government is going to run. It is the rights that we hold dear. It is the thing that gets Dole Remap out of her sticky situation from yesterday. So, okay, anyway. So we're going to spend some time on this. What I want you guys to understand, though, is we become a country in 1776. The Constitution is not a thing until 1789. So there are 12 years, I think my math is right, 12 years there, where something else is going on. And the word that I choose to use for it is chaos. You'll see why as we go. All right? So this is sort of our big question for today. During the war, we've declared ourselves independent, yay. But now what? What do we do now? And it was pretty clear pretty early on to the James Madisons, the Tom Jeffersons, the Ben Franklins, and so on, that we probably were going to have some sort of order, some sort of structure. We didn't want just anarchy to be the way that we were going to run as a country. Now, there were some early inspirations for American government. If you go all the way back to 1754, this Ben Franklin cat came up with this idea called the Albany Plan of Union. Back then, Ben Franklin was a hardcore loyalist. He had zero interest in revolting from Great Britain, but he saw the value that there might be in these 13 colonies coming together from time to time, putting up a united front and working together for the betterment of the 13 colonies. Now, this didn't ever happen, it never worked, but that idea that if we work together, that we can achieve something certainly comes back as they're talking about this in 1776. I would mention, some of you may remember this from U.S. history, even when we were going through the period right before the Revolution, when Great Britain was doing everything they could possibly do to tick us off. Tax, 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 tax. One of those taxes was the Stamp Act. You had to get a special stamp on any legal document. Of course, you had to pay for it. In response to that, several of these colonies joined together into what became known as the Stamp Act Congress. And together as a collective voice, they were able to convince Parliament to make some slight changes to this. So, again, I think that this idea of if we join together, we can achieve some sort of purpose. We have some inspiration, certainly, for this leading up to 76. So, what they eventually decide, Declaration is ratified on July 4th. It is signed on August 2nd. We are a country. Now, what is our government going to be? They spend the next couple of months sort of arguing that out. And what they eventually come up with is something called the Articles of Confederation. Now, There is a word for the Articles of Confederation. And that word is, I don't know, we could use embarrassment, certainly failure. Whatever you want to use to describe something that doesn't work at all. This is a lemon for those of you who are car people. Okay? The Articles of Confederation is a lemon. But I think it reflects the #1 concern amongst the colonies at this time. If you want to write this, you don't have, it's up to you. But I want you to understand where the mindset of these people is at this time. We are free. We have declared ourselves as such. We are fairly certain that there is going to be a big war, and we are fighting the most powerful country on this planet. So we're going to have a government. But how can we have a government that will give us the structure, the order that we need, but does not take away too much of our freedom? So it's kind of going back to that scenario at the beginning of class. You know, we know that we can't have too much freedom. We know that we need order, but how do we achieve that balance between the two? So I'm going to go through one more slide, and then I'm going to turn things over to you for current events. But I'd like for you to see a little bit about what the actual government looks like under this particular document. Okay? So Articles of Confederation, the key word here is confederation. So the idea here is, states are going to work together from time to time. Okay, there's the front cover of it, because I know you were all thinking, it'd be great if I could see the front cover of this thing. So there you go. I read your mind. So November of 77, they finally have this keyword, confederation. And I'm going to give you the definition of that word just because I think it's important, and I think it also shows us the potential problems that exist with it. There is our definition. Let's kind of break that down a little. A confederation is a loose association of states. Right there, red flag should be. We're a brand new country. We are fighting the most powerful country on earth. This is a time when we need to be held together by glue, by concrete, by something strong that's going to bond us together so that we can fight this power. And yet, what we've created is a loose association. To me, that sounds like we are held together by tape. Not even good tape. The cheap tape you get at the dollar store at Christmas time because mom ran out of tape. I don't know how many times I've been sent down to buy it. But that's what's holding us together. So it could break really quick. So, but this association is going to cooperate. Okay, listen, I've got 2 boys. Cooperation is oftentimes our goal. Can't you guys just get along for 10 minutes? Well, I'm not sure that's what I want out of our government. Can't you 13 kids just get along? Just for 10 minutes? I feel like that's the message being sent. We're gonna sort of work together when we have to, but otherwise, leave us alone. Let us do our thing. Last thought for the day, right here. Last thought. But it's a horrible idea. I mean, we can look back now, and we can say this was a horrible idea. But I also want to leave you with this. It makes perfect sense considering the reality of 1777. It was a big country back then. Not geographically, not physically, but I think in a figurative sense, it was a big country. You could not, if you lived in Massachusetts, it wasn't like you could just pick up the phone and call somebody in Georgia, and there you go. You couldn't jump on a plane and be to Georgia in an hour. You couldn't even jump on a train and get there in a day. It was a big country. And if you lived in Massachusetts, You probably had no idea what it was like to live in Georgia and South Carolina, and vice versa. So I would imagine there is some element of distrust. I would imagine there is some element of, we are Virginia. That's our country. Thomas Jefferson wrote often about his loyalty to his country. He wasn't talking about the United States. He was talking about Virginia. These colonies understood they had to work together if they had any chance of winning this war. But beyond that, let us do our own thing. So when we come back tomorrow, I'm going to give you these last 15 minutes here for current event work. When we come back tomorrow, we're going to look specifically at why this is not going to work. What are the specific failures in this particular document? All right. With that said, the rest of the time is yours. You got 15 minutes. Current event time would be the best way to use it.